Well, the Congress of Traditional Leaders of South Africa is still calling for the 8th of May to be declared National Ancestors Day. The most popular religious holidays are Christmas Day, Good Friday and Easter Monday. The organization hopes to have the day declared a national holiday in May, which includes Africa Day and is celebrated as International Africa Month. Well, Contralesa Secretary General Zolani Mkiva joins us now to discuss this further. Zolani, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for joining us on the Weekend Report this morning. Talk to us about the significance of the call that you're making.
Yes, good morning to you and good morning to the viewers of Newzroom. We are making this clarion call for the recognition of the Ancestors' Day against the background that what we want to see happening is to mainstream African spirituality in the national discourse of our country. This call is a call for recognition. It's about mainstreaming Africanity in the space. It's about liberating the African voice, as it were. But it is also to ensure that there is a balance in the calendar of the country as well as the continent. And I'm saying as well as the continent because we have poised the Ancestors' Day not only just as a day for South Africans, but as a day for Africans. It has already gained traction. You will recall that we launched the Ancestors' Day on the 8th of May in 2021 in Bushbuck Ridge. And we're doing that in order to inscribe it once and for all so that the communities, people to people, can begin a process of an engagement. Because as the current generation, we carry the hopes, the dreams, as well as the fears of all those who came before us, who are our forefathers and foremothers. And therefore, we have a moral duty that when we see that our continent is not doing great, is not doing well, and we can't find progression and a way forward in a number of fronts, the only thing that we have to do is for us to interface as communities, but also to intercede with our ancestors, to ask for forgiveness, to ask for intelligence, to ask for guidance, to ask for protection so that we can find a way forward. We have identified that since the liberation of many of us in the continent, we have failed to connect with our ancestors, and we think that it is that disconnect that is causing all the problems that are unending and continuing in Africa. And therefore, the only thing that we have to do is to recall who we are, where we come from, what are we made of, so that then we can make a way forward. I'm saying that...
Zolani, just allow me to interject there for a second. One of the major criticisms that we have currently when it comes to our public holidays, specifically those that are rooted in, a historical context for the country. I'll use Human Rights Day, for instance. There's a lot of criticism around the fact that the public holidays often just used as that, as a holiday for many South Africans, and not a lot of time put into the reflection required to truly, I suppose, commemorate the history, the historical context behind that particular day. What would a day like Ancestors' Day entail for South Africans, and what sort of reflections would be expected on a public holiday like that?
Well, first and foremost, we do not want to romanticize the issue of public holiday because, people have a culture of taking public holidays as a time for holidaying, and holidaying for them is a time for cooling off and going out and to go and entertain themselves. But on a day like this, it is a day wherein we must hold hands together as Africans and intercede with our ancestors and reflect and ponder about a number of things that are affecting us as a people. It's a day wherein we hold hands together. We must go to spiritual spaces and actually pray and actually, make those requests and communicate in the spiritual way that we do with our forefathers, with our ancestors, so that that connection, that connectivity, and that interfacing and that interceding process must give us the strength that we require. So it should not be just a day of tranquilizing and doing a lot of nothing, roaming around, but it is actually a day where we must be active in ensuring that we communicate volumes with our ancestors and ask for this guidance that I'm talking about. It's a day of reflection. Others may prefer to go to the gravesite to literally do something good around there, whether it entails cleaning, whether it entails that, interceding with their own parents and foreparents. So it is a very important day of spirituality, wherein we may, because what has happened is that the colonial system, in their quest to destroy our culture, it has actually killed our spirituality, and it has actually labeled it as part of preaching and worshipping of demons, of which it is not true. Our ancestors were referred to as actually demons. So it is time for us to liberate our people from that, because I think it is what keeps us in the squalor. It is what keeps us, living in shacks like chicken and living in kraals like cattle. So we want to see a transformation, and we as Contralesa, all we are doing is to provide leadership, particularly transformational leadership. We need to change the mindset of our people and not think that which defines them is actually backward.
Right. Talking about the leadership crisis that South Africa is currently facing, an element of this discussion, of course, Zolani, is the loss of indigenous knowledge systems and the cost that has cost Africans in the process. How much of what has been lost do you truly believe can help solve some of these social ills that we're dealing with today, particularly, as you've mentioned, the leadership crisis that we're facing, but other social ills? When we talk about problems plaguing South Africa, the problem of gender-based violence meted out against women and children, the vulnerable of the society, the inequality, the pervasive inequality that we face in this country, how would more access, more expression of our indigenous knowledge systems help in that area?
No, certainly you have hit the nail in the head there with that question. It's a very important question, because one of the things that we ought to do as a people is to say, what is the winning formula for us as a people? The winning formula for us is to say, fundamentally, we are Africans, and therefore we have a culture that defines us. It's our design of living. And that culture is basically anchored in that indigenous knowledge system and the African wisdom. If we negate that, then we will find ourselves mimicking everybody else in the world. And yet, our winning formula is simply to go back to our ways, to go back to our culture, and ensure that we embrace it and make it part and parcel of the management of our own national question. If you see most of the successful countries in the world, like China and the Indians, Chinese, everything they do it in the Chinese way, as well as the Indians. So all we have to do as Africans is to say everything that we do it in an African way. And that African way is entailed in the indigenous knowledge systems. The strategic mistake that we did, we simply inherited a foreign system which was brought here through cruelty and brutality. And we continued with that imperial system. Now it's happening under our stewardship. We will never master it. We can only master that which represents us. And the only thing that we have to do is to learn from the best elsewhere in the world. And we take that and infuse it within our own systems as Africans. In that way, we will win on everything that we do, because that instills confidence. So I fully agree with you. Unless we go back to our ways, and this process of saying that we must have the Ancestors' Day is meant exactly to answer that question, is meant exactly to provide that leadership in that context, that when everything else fails, go back to what has always made this continent to be what it is.
Now, Zolani, if I'm not mistaken, and please correct me if I am, this is the 4th year that Contralesa is pushing this particular campaign, calling on government to establish Ancestors' Day as a not only to recognize it officially, but also to establish it as a public holiday. What's the response been like on the ground? Because a government, yes, is supposed to lead its society, and one of the many ways it does that, of course, is through adopting policies, through, legislating certain rules and changes, but also promoting, being seen to officially be promoting a certain ideal. And so to get the stamp of approval from government is important, but equally important is buy-in from the very same people to whom you're speaking to this morning. What's the response?
Well, the response of the people has been quite very robust and overwhelming. It's been positive across the length and the breadth of the country, and even beyond the borders of beyond the borders of South Africa, as well as in the diaspora. So when this day was launched in 2021, on the same year, many communities around the country and around the continent did something symbolic to mark the inscription of the Ancestors' Day. Some people even reached out to us as far as England, as far as America, as far as the Caribbean, to say we are with you, and this is something that it's long overdue. So the traction is very much big on the ground. And you are correct that when a clarion call like this it is made, it must be owned by people. And once people are embracing it in the manner that they have in the past 3 years, then it goes without saying that a government of the people will certainly be compelled to actually ensure that they process this and ultimately make it a public holiday. And we're not going to wait until that it is gazetted by government. But year on year, we are going to be celebrating the Ancestors' Day, and we call upon our people that tomorrow, the Monday, 8th of May, is actually the Ancestors' Day. People in their given spaces, they need to reflect in their African way, in their African spirituality, whether you bend the buhu, as I have indicated, whether you go to the mountaintop and pray, and you can go to any given spiritual space. So I'm saying that the government is going to be compelled, because we have made a compelling case, and we do not think that anybody can be opposed to this idea. Our leaders are actually going to be compelled to actually implement what we are asking them to do.
All right. Well, Zolani, thank you so much for coming onto the Weekend Report and sharing your insights with us. That was Contralesa Secretary General Zolani Mkiva.